I'm here with John Dempsey. We kind of got connected. He's a friend of Josh LaJaunie's. He had an article on Forks Over Knives, and we've been chatting back and forth. And I appreciate the time to sit down and talk to me, John. And maybe we could just start off with a little bit about yourself and where you're from and where you live.
Yeah, I'm from Virginia Beach, Virginia right now. I grew up in Long Island in a town called Long Beach for 33 years, and we were down here for about 15 years, married for 25 years this February, and I have a 24-year-old son and a 20-year-old daughter.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I think, I saw on Forks Over Knives at one point, your highest, you were at 380 at the age, I think, of 44. What, was that something that you put on the weight later in life? Were you always kind of a bigger guy?
After high school and all, I started drinking, hang out in bars and all that stuff. So the weight slowly came on. I was never small. I was always in the quote unquote husky range. And then that just started a progression of basically yo-yoing over the years, being based on eating, drinking, and then I would stop for a while, exercise, lose weight, go back and forth. So, but then when I got to in my mid 40s, that's when I really got super heavy, up to the 400 pound, almost 400, 380, 400 pound range.
So it sounds like throughout your life, it was something you were conscious of, it was something that you at times maybe wanted to do something about and then other times didn't. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So it would be a yo-yo cycle. And then the weight would just come back on, and then I would get to a point and then just figure out a way to lose it again by different avenues.
Okay. And then, what kind of triggered those times whenever you would yo-yo up and yo-yo down?
Maybe, maybe New Year, maybe I didn't feel good, New Year resolution, or maybe if I watched something on TV or saw a book or an article or something like that. So, but before the last time, it was all basically a lot of counting calories, and stuff like that.
And then did you have, as far as physical ailments, did you have much going on throughout that process?
Yeah, I basically for like minimum 15 years was on cholesterol and blood pressure medicine before when I was 44. So I was basically for years on cholesterol and blood pressure. Okay.
And I know obviously, at this point in the last couple of years, diet has played a big, factor in all that. But whenever you were with your doctor or yourself, was there ever any thought to getting that blood pressure and cholesterol down? Was there ever any thought to diet?
No, well, it's funny. My doctor, even when I was like 380 pounds, my doctor always said, well, your insurance doesn't cover gastric bypass, so you have to pay like 10 grand for that. But I'm not a big weight guy, he would tell me, because I could keep you alive on pills, basically.
That is scary.
Yeah, but that's, unfortunately, that's what they know, most regular internists.
Wow. So I think it was 44 that you kind of decided to make a change. Is that right?
Yeah, basically on the end of sometime February 2012, I was flipping around Netflix and I found Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. So I watched that and basically something clicked that night that with the guy Phil, like, well, if this guy could do it, why can't I do it? And a lot of stuff that Joe Cross and Neil Bernard said in that was about how we eat so much because we're not getting any nutrients. So we're eating all these dead foods, so we're eating more and more because our body's striving for nutrients. And that's basically what Bernard talks about all the time. And then after that, I really got his book, Eat to Live, and then found Forks Over Knives, the movie, probably in the same 2-week period. And especially with Forks Over Knives, I mean, when I watched that was just mind-blowing because it was just so much stuff. I mean, I left that, after watching that and reading Bernard's book, I basically left that with the attitude that my whole life I was lied to. That everybody, not willingly, but everybody basically lied to me my whole life on everything I thought I knew about food. Even with calcium and heart disease, when Forks Over Knives goes into it, all these details and what the government is promoting. in all the food industry and all that stuff.
I know you said you had a bunch of medical conditions. Thinking, you're at your biggest, you're not in the best shape. What was, is there anything that you can think about looking back that kind of had put you in the right place to be willing to kind of hear all that at that time?
It must have just been something that clicked, because it was just, just walking up the stairs to work and just little things were just a major, project. Be out of breath doing yard work, mowing the lawn, any little thing.
Yeah, and so did you, what did life look like in those first days and weeks to come since, it sounds like what your diet and life looked like was significantly different than, if you said you felt like you'd been lied to, how'd you kind of change course?
I basically took the principles out of Feynman's book on eating 40% fruits and vegetables. 40% fruits, 40% vegetables, 20% whatever. And I thought that was real doable. So I just started slowly just increasing fruits and vegetables tremendously. And right away, the weight came off and I started feeling a lot better. And within 3 months, I was able to, I think in the first 2 months, I lost like 50 pounds or something like that. And then when I went, right before I started this, I went to the doctor. And so I had good, clean blood numbers. And then when I went back 3 months later, which would have been about 2.5 months into this, closer to 3 maybe, I get another blood test. And I basically pulled myself off all my medicine from that because my cholesterol was probably on medicine about 200. And doctors are fine with that, 200 cholesterol, even though if you really look into it, it's not good enough. But I think when I went back after that first 3 months, my cholesterol was down to 110 or something like that, just by changing my diet. So I basically just pulled myself off my medicine myself. And and then when I went back 3 months after that for another checkup, I got my cholesterol done and it was about 140. So he's like, "Oh, you should still stay on your medicine." I'm like, I was off it for 3 months already. "Oh, why?" Da, da, da. So I said to him, I go, "Look, even when I went off it when it was 110, I'm like, well, if it was 200 on medicine, it's 110 now eating the way I am. If I continue eating the way I am, logically it would go up a little bit." But so it went up to about 140, 150, which is with all the studies what's that report, the Framingham study or something like that, basically says if your cholesterol is under 150, no one will have a heart attack because of that.
Wow. And then, did you have people in your family? Was there a bad heart history, or were there other people around you who had struggled with some of those same things?
No, I was like the first one where that was a weight, self-induced weight inflict, had issues because of weight. There was some big people in my family, but not to the level I got.
And then, it sounded like, you went from, you could hardly get up a flight of stairs. And I think I read that, you started actually running and signing up for races. You even did your first half marathon. How did that kind of progress, falling in love with exercise?
Well, I always had a gym membership. So I was one of those guys who went to the gym, got on the elliptical, did all this stuff, but then went and ate 20 chicken wings or something like that afterwards. So that was, and we all see people like that at the gym who you see at the gym who never lose weight because they don't have their food under control. So when I started this, I started doing a lot of just elliptical because it was easiest on my knees and stuff like that. And then when I got down to about 280, because I think in 6 months I lost 100 pounds. So when I got down to, started getting around 290, 280, for some reason I always had this desire to run. Even when I'm 400 pounds, I would go to a boardwalk and see people running. And I'm like, wow, that looks like fun. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it looks like fun for them, but I'm 400 pounds, so I'm never doing that. So I kept on trying to run on the treadmill when I got to around 280, 290. And then it took a little while for my legs to get used to it. Then when I got down to around 260, I was able, like every 10 pounds I lost, I would get on the treadmill and try to run again and got off the elliptical. And then when I got 260, it wasn't killing my legs. And then I think 6 months, because I started March 2012. In December, I ran my first 5K. And then a year and a half after that is when I ran my first half marathon.
Okay, wow. And then, I know you said you've been married. You're married, I think you said 25 years.
Yeah.
Were there any conversations or, concerns previously about health, weight, any of that kind of stuff before this time?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but nothing major probably. It's like, okay, maybe you should lose some weight, but nothing, no long, deep in, the sky is falling conversations probably.
Yeah. And then what did that, did you and your wife kind of do this together, or was it something that you made a decision to do on your own? What were those conversations like?
No, I just started doing it one day, and then I'm like, and I guess in the beginning, I mean, I don't know, you have to ask her, but it was probably like, oh, here goes one of the yo-yo diets, but this is the time it actually clicked and stayed and worked.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I know somewhere in there, we talked over the phone previously. I know somewhere in there, it's been a bit of time now, and you've had kind of a rocky road along the way. Would you mind kind of talking about that a little bit?
Yeah, basically, when I was doing my best, I knew no other vegans. It was just me by myself. My only contact in the first year and a half, 2 years in vegans was after Josh did his first podcast on Rich Roll. I sent him a message on Facebook and we became friends. And this other guy, Jay, who has a YouTube channel, Plant-Based Athlete, he has a website, Thriving Plant-Based. I connected with him on Facebook, and those were the two guys I chatted with. And all my vegan plant-based interactions were with people on YouTube. I would watch YouTube videos to get to talk to people about stuff. But I knew there was something that I needed to find vegans or people with the same thought. Well, let's go back a little bit, because the first year I was basically I did the Feynman 80-20 thing, so I was still eating animal products, but very minimal. Then before my half marathon, I read Rich Roll's book, and I said, okay, I was doing so little meat to begin with. It was just a small portion of my diet. And then I read Rich Roll's book. I'm like, oh, let's see what happens if I just get rid of the meat. And then I stuck with, dairy and eggs, but only in packaged goods or in sauces, or, if there was egg and pasta, I would eat it. But I really wasn't eating it in whole form. And then 2 years into this, I ended up watching, I found on YouTube the Gary Yourofsky speech, his lecture. So that led me to Earthlings, watching Earthlings. So after I watched that, I basically said, okay, it's time to dump the milk and the eggs and all animal products. So basically 2 years into this is when I went vegan. So then I ended up at like a fruit potluck with bunch of these people. And a lot of them were ethical vegans. So I started learning a lot about the ethical side of veganism, because a lot down here in Norfolk, Virginia is the headquarters for PETA. So I have a lot of friends who work there and stuff like that. Well, and it was great because now I know the whole entire, the health aspect, the ethical side of it, and now everything that's in the news lately about the environmental impact that eating all these animal products are doing. So it's like a three stages of destruction, basically, to people's health, to all these animals, and to the environment. But the negativity of meeting all these new vegans was a lot of them are ethical vegans. So they started, now all of a sudden I started learning about vegan food. Oh yeah, you could get a vegan cheesesteak here, you could get vegan pizza here, there's the vegan bakery, here's the best place for vegan Chinese food, Indian food, blah, blah, blah. So the more, so basically I started learning, and like anything, I guess food is addiction. So, you get and what we're addicted to really is the salts and the fats, more or less, because we could get the other stuff out of regular food. So I started hitting more and more, especially at that time my job changed and I went also from an inside position to an outside sales rep position. So I was on the road more. So I was like, oh, this is how you make Taco Bell vegan. So I was eating more and more vegan junk food, which is, a heck of a lot better than eating the animal version of it. But for someone with history of weight issues, it's going to slowly put the weight back on. So, so that's how I basically started putting a little weight back on. And then I had, in August, I had a bad fall running on a trail, getting ready for a 50K race. And then basically with the lack of exercising, because I couldn't run, I hopefully be able to run come April again. It really took a toll on me gaining weight because now I'm not running. I'm basically probably depressed a little bit about that, stressed over that. And I had surgery like 5 weeks ago on my shoulder because I had a torn rotator cuff. They had to move my bicep tendon and a whole bunch of other stuff. So my therapist says she never saw anybody get this much work done on their shoulder at one time. So that's when, right before my surgery, I know I stepped on a scale and I was probably like 290, 292. And in that month leading up to the surgery, I was probably eating so much, just, it was like, and this is where, it was great that I found the ethical side of this lifestyle, because if I never did, when I went back I would have probably, instead of eating vegan chicken wings, I probably would have went back to eating the real thing, or that Beyond Beef, the new Beyond Beef burger, going back to eating a regular burger. Because, I really feel I would have went that back way, but being I know the ethical side of it all, that kept me from doing even more damage than I did, because I probably only did some, I have some weight issues, but I really, if I went back to eating all the meat product, then all my blood pressure, all my cholesterol, and all that stuff would have came back.
Where are you kind of out at in the middle of all this? Because I know, obviously, you mentioned to me you're lower than 290, so you kind of started to redirect the ship again.
Yeah. Basically, the day after my surgery, I said, well, I have to get my stuff, because I'm definitely not, for the first 3-4 weeks, I definitely can't do anything. I'm just going to definitely be sitting around. And so now if I'm 290, if I'm just sitting around eating, because I can't walk or do anything really that much, I would definitely be, before I know it, if I keep it up, I'm going to be 300. So again, I basically, from the day after my surgery, I think I had the weekend after my surgery, I had my last 1 or 2 good vegan meals. And then after that, I just went out and got all my stuff and went back to basics of oatmeal and fruit for breakfast, potatoes, rice, beans, lentils and stuff like that. And since then, I lost 12, 13 pounds, I guess, with very little exercise, just on food. I'm walking 10, 12 miles a week. That's about it. And I think, one of the things that helped me start too was I was on so many painkillers. The painkillers, you have no appetite. It's so I think that really helped. For the first week and a half on the painkillers, I didn't even want to eat. So that was, I think, really helped get me jump started too, in a sense, because I wasn't craving food.
It sounds to me like you kind of made a decision in the other direction from where you were not too long ago, what are you putting in place? I know you said like I know how to make Taco Bell vegan now. I know I know a place I can get a vegan cheesesteak. What have you kind of put in place as safeties this time around to make sure that you don't find yourself there?
Just a lot of more planning because I wasn't planning meals. I wasn't bringing food in the car with me. I wasn't packing food in my lunchbox to bring with me to keep in the car. That was one of the things I was doing, and not just, not buying it, and if I do have to go out with a customer, I'm trying to stay to like sushi or something like that I could get vegetable sushi or something like that.
Planning seems to be one of those things for a lot of people. It's just difficult. And so can you kind of give an idea of how now, knowing what you know, like what does a normal day or week look like for you in terms of planning?
Well, just make sure I have the stuff in the house, first of all. That's the biggest thing. And then just getting a lot of easy stuff like hummuses. I was doing a lot of the Engine 2 hummuses because those have basically no fat, very low fat in them compared to regular, if you buy the store brand hummus. Making like loading the Instapot up with rice, doing that Chef AJ's for red bean chili, red lentil chili, that's it. Making some bulk food so I have it, having tons of potatoes in the house. So, lately the norm was just cutting up a bunch of potatoes, throwing in the oven and just eating them like that, or steaming them all and mashing them with some avocado. Getting a lot of celery and vegetables I could chop up to bring with hummus and stuff.
I know we didn't talk about it too much, but I think you said previously that you were one Chinese buffet away from serious, even more serious health issues or even death if you hadn't changed your ways. Was it looking pretty bleak for you?
Well, I was at that point. I was 44 years old. I'm on multiple medicines. I'm not exercising. It was, at that point, probably the weight's probably going to come on faster than another. So, if I kept on going, the way I was going, I would, there was a very good chance I wouldn't be here today. Because I wasn't going in the right cycle,
And how much does that still play in your mind today? Like in making the change that you're making now, headed in the direction you're headed now?
Honestly, I really came to the conclusion a while ago that my philosophy is you can't look at anything in the past. Just even what I did to get myself back up to the weight I am now, I can't look at that. I just have to look at today and going forward to be the best I can be for wherever that's going to be.
Yeah, I think that's super important because a lot of times, you hit a hiccup or you kind of go in the wrong direction. It can be really easy just to have that momentum sway you. But for you, it sounds like, you really, the only direction you're looking is forward.
Yeah, I really came to that conclusion a while ago. Okay, I can't bash myself up every day, like because of my setbacks. I could just look to the future and how I'm going to change it. And, hopefully it will help other people. One great thing and what really super motivated me was I have this friend, Bobby, who was always heavy, big guy, 6'5", 300 pounds, ex-Marine, all this stuff, ex-professional wrestler and all this stuff. And he was always heavy. And when I did this stuff, he's like, I can't do that vegan crap like you. And he's from Boston, so he just talks like that. And he goes to the VA, and they basically told him, unless you get your crap together, you're going to be on diabetes medicine your whole life. So basically the day after, the day of, or sometime in the first week, he calls me up. And I didn't talk to him for a while. And he calls me up. He goes, hey, I went to the VA today. I'm ready to do this vegan crap that you're doing because I'm not taking medicine. And you know what? He read Freeman's book. He got his diabetes book. He talked to a couple of vegan dietitians. Because with diabetes is different than cholesterol and blood pressure. Like you could give up the animal products and you're gonna most likely lower your cholesterol, lower your blood pressure. But with diabetes, apparently it's a lot different with your sugar levels, because he was doing the same thing as me, and he's like, oh, my sugar's going up. So he had to, he had to tweak it a little bit more. But that's something, that encouraged me that realize, wow, people were looking at me for example that I can't, I need to get my stuff together, because, every once in a while the forks over knives thing pops up, and it was almost in a lot of ways to me embarrassing. Even when you contacted me, I mean, I was like, the conversation we had about, well, maybe we wait till I get back to where I was, because it is embarrassing a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think you're a great example of you just got to stay in the fight, and you got to keep going at it, and you may have some setbacks, but it doesn't mean that all is lost.
Right, and like we said, everybody just doesn't, stuff comes up in life sometimes, and it just throws you sideways, and you just have to get through it, and then just live to fight another day, I guess, and make yourself better because of what you went through, which I think is a part of me. I know what the damage is of eating as a regular diet processed vegan food, even though it is vegan. And and don't get me wrong, I think there's a place for that. I mean, because there are going to be people who aren't going to be able to go right to eating rice and beans and boiled potatoes, and kale and kale salads. There is a place that and if they have no health issues, you know what? It's doing the world and the environment a lot better.
Yeah, sometimes those transition things can help, if nothing else, for the sake of just piquing curiosity or openness. Or so, where you stand today. I know that you're above what your lowest weight was, but obviously that's the direction you're headed. When you look, 6 months, a year, 2 years, et cetera, down the road, where do you see yourself? What are you working towards now?
Well, first goal is to get back this year to where I was, and then, I always thought, 225 was the lowest I could go, but obviously, I don't know. We see where we get. Bottom line is to get back to the 225 thing, and go from there.
Okay, and then physical exercise and whatnot. Do you have any goals you're working towards?
My goal of last year was to run my first 50K, because in 2015 I ran my first marathon at the Marine Corps. I did. So the goal is to get back running, and hopefully I can start running in April again, or get in all the fall half marathons, and 2018 try for a 50K or another marathon.
Okay, awesome. And then, do you have any advice that you would give to somebody who's at the beginning of this journey, who is trying to figure things out, is trying to get things started, moving in a positive direction, and just needs some words of encouragement?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just to educate yourself, and then figure out what works for you, because what works for me ain't going to be what works for you. Everybody's going to be different, because of all of what we go through in life and our environment, our home structure. But I mean, in a short time, anybody who just gets rid of the majority of animal products is going to definitely see a massive change in something, in their weight. And the one thing that I noticed was there was a mindset change in it. And I think that was when, that somewhere along the line, I became a more compassionate, not angry person. And I think that's a lot of eliminating the foods that we're eating, with all the animal product, with all the toxin and basically bad karma that we're getting from eating those products. That basically, if you do this lifestyle for a year or two, you're not going to be the same person as you were physically, mentally.
That's great. And then, if you could go back in time to your 44-year-old self who was 380 pounds and give that person any words of encouragement or any advice, is there anything you would say to them?
Stick through the hard times, because there's a huge rainbow at the end of the tunnel. And that's going to be doing things that you never would imagine you would be doing, running a marathon in DC, running on the boardwalk, running through woods, That's one of the most depressing things about being injured right now and not running, is because that was basically my place to go with. No matter how bad of a day is, you put on shoes, and obviously you got a bike in the back, you get your stuff together and you just roll, and then you get back home and everything's perfect.
Yeah. Well, I'll look forward to seeing you crossing the finish line at your next marathon or 50K.
Yes, definitely.
And then lastly, where can people connect with you?
Best place is Instagram, and it's John_banana boy, because for a while I was eating tons of bananas. For one point I was eating like 10 to 12 bananas a day, just buying them by the cases. So that's something I fell off of too that I'm getting back. I think today I had like 4 so far. So.
Oh wow! And just for the record, it's not even 10 o'clock yet in the morning, so you're on a roll. Yes. Well, awesome. Well, John, thanks for the encouragement, thanks for the inspiration, thanks for being honest about where you are, where you've come from, and giving some great advice about what people can do to make some changes in their life. And like I said, I'll look forward to keeping up with you, maybe one day running on the boardwalk with you, and I hope you have a great day.
You too, man. Thanks for what you're doing, because you're making a difference in making people wake up to it.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks.